Hi guys, we're on the ground in Singapore, and as promised, I told you I'd talk about the QRH, which is the Quick Reference Handbook. Even though some aeroplanes have got an electronic checklist, like I said, like 747-8, we're in a 400 ERF today, but the 400 ERF uses paper checklists for normal checklists and also for emergencies, non-normals, and so on. So the QRH lives on the side here. There's one on the side adjacent to each pilot. The FO has the one as well. There it is. And as I said, we're ICAS driven. So on the ICAS here, which you'll zoom around and show, this is the ICAS. So anything comes up here on the ICAS, we immediately call it up. Usually the pilot flying will say whatever it is that comes up. I'll just bring up some stuff there, for example, so I just show you. There it is. Let's say we're in flight and say fuel pump 4 comes up. I would immediately go to the QRH. So the pilot flying would say fuel pump 4 checklist. I would come in here, and as I shown you before, there's a list of all the possible ICAS messages on this aeroplane, and then I could look for it and say F, fuel pump. There it is. There's a fuel pump. Fuel pump 1 or 4 aft or forward is in 1226. Section 12, there's section 12 there. I'll go into section 12 and look for fuel pump. Fuel pump 1 or 4 aft or forward, or pump 2, 3 aft or forward. So let's go for fuel pump 1 or 4 aft, say. 1226 is the page. There's 12.9, 1223. That's 12.3, pump 1 or 4 aft or forward. Okay, so then we'll just read whatever is on the checklist until it's completed. That's how the checklist works. The whole idea of using the QRH is that when you leave home with your knowledge, experience, and understanding of how the aeroplane works. So if you get on board, you normally do your normal flow pattern and set the aeroplane up for a departure or an arrival. And then if you miss out anything, it works that the normal checklist, this which is here, sits in here, and the combing panel sits in there. We pull it out. That's the paper checklist. So we'll do the normal checklist. So if you missed out anything in your original planning, then the normal checklist will pick you up. If something goes wrong, an ICAS message will come up, and then you'd use the QRH. So the QRH is meant for you to fix non-normals. The QRH started many years ago in the 1950s when jet aircraft started, and passenger aircraft in the 1960s, like with the 707s and so on. It started off being called the Emergency and Abnormal Checklist. That's what it was called. Now it's just called the Quick Reference Handbook. From Emergency Abnormal Checklist, it progressed to being an abnormal checklist operation. Then they removed abnormal and they removed emergency. They just called it a non-normal checklist. Then that disappeared as well. Then they called it the Quick Reference Handbook. So in there is a Quick Reference Handbook. So if you do the normal checklist, you don't fix things. The ICAS comes up. The QRH is designed to get you out of trouble. If the QRH doesn't work, then get out of the aeroplane. Right at the back is the evacuation checklist. So you do that, and that's the evacuation checklist. Basically, evacuation is needed because you've used your knowledge, you've used the normal checklist, you've used everything in the QRH, and you can't fix it. So it says you may as well get out then if it's that dire and that much of an emergency or non-normal. So that's fairly straightforward. So the idea is, even on an electronic checklist aircraft, if you get to a point where you have to evacuate, we don't use the electronic checklist. You grab this, turn it around, and the evacuation checklist is there. It's ready to go. That's the point of it. That's the QRH, Quick Reference Handbook. That's how we use it later.